Also this morning, not only on Facebook, on Instagram. No, we're not on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter right now. We're on LinkedIn and we're on YouTube at the same time. For those that don't know me, my name is Frank Ferragini, aka Frankie Flowers of City TV's Breakfast Television and Cityline, where you can see me Monday through Friday on Breakfast Television, where I tell the weather, give some garden advice, and the odd occasional bad dad joke. That's this guy. As well, you can see me on Cityline usually a couple times a month. If you're wondering how or why, is this guy a garden expert? My family business, which is Bradford Greenhouse Garden Gallery. We have two locations, one in Bradford, one in Barrie, greenhouse growers. I am indeed a product of child labor. I've spent the 10,000 hours in the garden center. I've done landscaping. We farmed for a period of time. I've been an avid gardener all my life. My Opa Pete, when I was growing up, had probably the biggest vegetable garden in all of Newmarket. I'm just going to turn off that little ringer there so that doesn't disturb us. And I'm four-time best-selling garden author. So we got those books too. And then also got some communication awards from Landscape Ontario and things like that as well. Let me just take a look here if the chat's working. Yeah, there we go. Good morning, Tanya. We have good morning this morning from Tammy as well in Cold Niagara. We have good mornings this morning from Mary Jane. Look at this one here. We even got a good morning there. Look, that's good morning from Curtis, Ontario. That's from Crystal. Good morning to you as well. It's so great. Ashley Brown's on here this morning. I want to bring up a couple things too. Look at this. All these good mornings. So good. Matthew Amos, good morning to you as well. A couple things that I want to bring up. First off, I want to answer a question from last week's broadcast that we did here. Hi, Frankie. This is from Carol Sweeney. I have roots. Do I have to root a spider plant in water before planting, or can I just clip it from the mother plant and put it in dirt? So with the spider plant, of course, spider plants are those green and white foliage trailing plants that then put on a whole bunch of what they call pups, those little babies that you see on the end. Those little babies that you see on the end, you could just snip them off and you could root it right into a potting soil. The other thing that you can do is if they're really long, you can actually have that pot of soil sitting right there and just pin that little pup, that little baby into the soil. And you'll find within about 4 weeks, those roots will start to set and then you can just cut it off and root it that way. They can also be rooted quite easily in water as well. So those are some different options that you can do. Good morning, everyone. What a beautiful morning, says Anna. Good morning, Maria, forgive me, that is. Linda says good morning from Holland Landing. Look at this. Got to say hello to Paula Polly out there too. Good morning from Polly as well. That's great. Couple other things that we want to talk about today before we get into some questions. And please, if you're on this for the first time, put your questions there. Those questions will actually help me kind of moderate what's going on in the world of gardening. This area here, all the different comment sections, if you're able to, and you know some of the answers, this is really a community where I want you guys to answer and share, and where we can find out more about each other, more about our gardens, and help everybody on that garden path. Because the more we nurture, the more we take care of something, the better it'll be. And along that kind of wave of gardening as well is we're going to have some mistakes. We're going to have some colossal failures. We're going to have disease. We're going to have insects. We're going to have rodents. But when you have that wonderful tomato, and I still talk about that tomato, that Cherokee purple tomato last year that I had in my garden, that heirloom variety that was oh so delicious, that's when it all becomes worth it, the journey. Good morning from Hilton Beach. Burr. Cold up here in St. Joseph Island. Yeah. Good morning from Toronto, says Nancy. Sharon Lloyd says good morning. Good morning from Huntsville, says Danny. Marilyn Miller, good morning from Mount Albert. Penny, good morning as well. How do I stop birds from flying into my window, says Marilyn Sherwood. I'll pop that question up there because that's the question that we're going to talk about right now. So how do I stop birds from flying into my window? Often what will happen is if you especially have plants on your inside windows and your windows are quite large and those windows they really have no slats in the windows, a bird really just looks at that and sees the plant or sees the green and will fly towards that window. It'll hit the window, and often that's when you'll have some different birds that could even really hurt themselves, and a lot of the times they die. Happens in downtown Toronto on a lot of the really big tall buildings there that are all glass. You can put decals. So there are decals, bird window decals that you can put on your windows, and that'll discourage the birds from coming in that area. So, or what you're trying to do is to allow them to know that there's a window that's there. That's probably the best thing that you can do. But check out some of those bird decals. They'll be really good for you as well. So that was from Mary Lynn. So how do I pull this one down now? I don't know. So I want to make sure that one comes down. Hide the message from some stream. Boom. There we go. I'm learning. This is a whole new thing that I'm doing here, but it's good because then I can put the questions up there. Okay. A couple things that I wanted to talk to you about before we get really into the questions. One thing I wanted to tell you guys about is still this year with, you're hearing a lot about supply chain and trucking and all these different things. The industry of the gardening industry is also getting hit by a lot of these shortages in supply of even just truck drivers. That puts the cost of trucking way up. So that puts, normally when you would bring in, let's just use patio furniture. If you were to bring in a tractor trailer load of patio furniture, the freight cost on that, let's say that it would be about $4,000 to $5,000. Now that freight cost is $20,000. So that's going to trickle down, and those costs are going to end up at the retail floor. So this year, as we head our way into the garden season, I want you to really be strategic in what you do, because you're not going to see huge price increases in plants themselves, especially locally grown plants. But if some of those plants are coming from like a lot of the tropicals, you're going to start to see a fairly large increase in tropical plants and pricing. And the reason for that is they're coming from Florida, and that transportation cost, because there's a shortage, there's a real issue bringing those items in. So that cost is almost double and triple. So those larger, especially larger size tropical plants, are really going to be a larger increase. But this year, as you go into the garden center or you go to think about buying plants or incorporating plants indoors or out, I want you to really have a good plan. And that's always about the right plant for the right place. Because we can go and say we want plants for the inside of our home, and we can go there to a wonderful plant store like Valley View or My Family Business, which is Bradford Greenhouses, or any of the garden galleries. And even sometimes Home Depot has a wonderful selection, and Lowe's has a wonderful selection. But we could go there and just buy these plants because they look pretty. And, some of those plants, if they're put in the right location, will, continue to bloom. Like I'm always grabbing like this. My anthurium blooms like crazy. I have a peace lily over there that does exceptionally well. I have a ficus audra that is, thanks to Tanya, that is doing really well. And then it's ficus audrey, forgive me, that's doing really well. So the right plant in the right place. But if we buy these plants and then we bring them home and they die, some of them, like I know there was one ficus, fiddle leaf ficus that I just got for a friend that's about 6 feet tall, and it was $200. That's a big expense, right? So we want to make sure that we're going there, right plant for the right place. Is it the right amount of light? And just ask those questions and kind of go there with a little bit of a plan, especially if you're thinking about seed starting. Seed starting right now, I was at my family garden center. I've been there each and every morning broadcasting from breakfast television. Tomorrow morning, I'll actually be broadcasting from my kitchen just because my camera person needs the day off. But right now you can go to your garden centers, and at those garden centers, you're going to see a whole whack of seeds. You get pretty excited, right? You're like, I want to grow food this year. It's going to be great. And then you go ahead and you buy all these seeds because you really don't have a good plan in place. So if you want to put a good plan in place, if you're growing food, my book, Food to Grow, trying to get this more publications published, but you can find this in some bookstores now. You can also find it used. You can find it at many libraries. Yeah, there's this thing called the library. There's digital ways that you can do it as well. And that'll really help guide you. Beginning in March, about the first day of March, which is March 21st, that's when my goal is to release that online course. So just to give you a heads up, that's going to be on Garden to Table, the online course. So we hope to do that too. So there's industry costs. There's a little bit about seed starting. Make sure you go with a plan. Take the time right now to do some research. Look through Pinterest pictures. Look around and see what you want to do on your garden. I did an event this week, an online event for Landscape Ontario. And on that event, we were actually talking about where the industry is, and many really good landscapers are already booked out for next year. They're already booked. Many good pool companies are actually now booking into 2024, right? So if you're thinking about doing an outdoor landscape project, if you're thinking about doing that, do some research beforehand, and then really think about booking that landscaper in. If you want it done this summer, you may actually have already missed the mark. But those are some of the things that you should do. Watering, a reminder now that our days are starting to grow, especially on sunny days where we have 2 to 3 days of sunny conditions. Indoors, your plants may need a little bit more water because days now are getting a little bit longer. At the end of February, that's when we're going to start to really see that. And we're going to really need at that time to water a little bit more, but also to fertilize. Fertilizing generally for the months of October through to March. You don't have to do much fertilizing, maybe just once a month. And that's with a water soluble, like a Scott's Miracle Grow water soluble fertilizer. But then when we get into March, we really want to increase that to twice a month fertilizing. And that'll really benefit the plants and grow. And if you're thinking about repotting, if your plants are doing well right now, I like to repot, and we'll do something on repotting. But I like to do it when frost warnings are gone, and I do a lot of it outside. That way the mess stays outside. Snow, a record snowfall. We actually have more snow tomorrow that's coming towards the city of Toronto, only about 2 centimeters. But Toronto saw a record snowfall last Monday. That snow is absolutely fantastic as an insulator for plants and provides lots of moisture. My fear about that snow, and this is just for property owners, is that if it does melt quickly, if we get a quick warm up, we're going to have a load of flooding. So right now, go and inspect your home and see some areas maybe where the snow load is close and higher than windows and things like that, where you can really protect. And remember, water and electricity just doesn't mix. So my fear is that snow, if it melts really quickly, we're going to have a lot of problems come this spring. That's just my prediction. Cold. We had some cold conditions and we have some cold days. Fantastic. Cold a lot of times people think it's winters that kill plants, but it's often summers. It's the drought in the summer and the stress. And then the winter just really kind of solidifies that. But what winter does when we have cold conditions, we have a good snow load, so it's insulating plants. But then at the same time, we have nice cold conditions. That's going to kill a lot of insects and bacteria that are sitting on some of our deciduous trees and things like that. That should reduce the amount of gypsy moss for 2022. There you go. Now, let's get into some questions. Good morning from Windy Collingwood this morning. Patricia's saying that. This week, people discovered baby raccoons. What was this? Let's see what this question is here. I'll pop this up here. This week, people discovered baby raccoons in Mississauga. Spring is coming. Spring is coming. Spring is coming. Baby raccoons. There's a lot of raccoons in Toronto. We can do a whole show on raccoons, and maybe we'll do that one time. Maggie says, good morning from Stouffville. We have a hello from Stratford, from Singhampton this morning. We have a good morning from Newmarket, from Alliston. Here we go. This is a big question here. So let's see what this question is as well. So good morning. I winterized geraniums. However, I had to go into the cold, dark place to deal with some house issues and notice they were sprouting new growth. I've since moved them upstairs in light, but what should I be doing? Is it, let's see the rest of the message there. Is it too soon for light? Blah, 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 blah. What should she be doing? Here we go. I have since moved them upstairs into the light. What should I be doing? Is it too soon for light, or is it okay to just care for them like a houseplant, then move them outside in the spring when it's warm? Thank you so much. Indeed. Now that they've sprouted growth and now that you've moved them up and you've incorporated them into light, to be very honest with you, at the greenhouse right now, my family greenhouse, we're currently taking geranium cuttings. So, and actually a lot of those cuttings are being shipped in. So those cuttings actually, a lot of the geranium varieties, the new geranium varieties, actually come out of South Africa. No joke. So a lot of those geraniums that you see in your home, around your home in spring, those come from South Africa. Your garden is a collection from around the world, by the way. But that geranium that you brought up now, you're going to water it. You're going to start to fertilize it and do once a month fertilizing, treat it like a houseplant. You can even experiment by taking some of that new growth and pinching those off and taking slips. You're going to use a rooting hormone #1. You can just dab it into that and dab it into a potting soil. And you can also start to root some additional geraniums if you want to keep growing them on. And just a reminder as well, geranium is a plant that really, the grandma's favorite, they are because they last, but a geranium as well is a plant that generally likes to be more dry than wet. So the key is for indoors, bright room, south or west facing room, but allow it to dry in between waterings. If you don't allow it to dry in between waterings, you're going to start to have those roots sitting in water for way too long. If they sit in water for way too long, they're going to develop root rot. And then that root rot, of course, is going to cause that plant to die. And we don't want that. Good morning from Coburg. Here we go. We got another question. Good morning from Coburg, Ontario, Canada. My amaryllis is blooming, beautiful. Wish I knew how to post a pic here. Love your knowledge and show. Thank you, says Rosemary. Awesome. You can post a pic through Facebook if you want. Or the other part too is if you ever want to show me a pic, Frankie@frankieflowers.com. My email, Frankie with an IE at frankieflowers.com. So check that out there. Good morning from Marmara, Ontario. Any idea when spring planting may start in May? Let's pop this up here. So here's the question, right? The question is when's frost going to be over? That's when spring planting can happen. So, there's the planting moon, which is that it's the first full moon near the end of the month of May, generally. May 2-4 has always been, I got to check when the planting moon is. I'm forgetting which moon that is. But it's near the end of May. I forget where it is, like the third week in May, that moon that happens, whatever. You can see the key is really to pay attention to forecast. And, planting season in spring can be anywhere from the middle of May to the middle of June, depending upon where you live, where you're watching me from, and then depending upon weather patterns as well. It's not unheard of, even in Toronto, to have snow on Mother's Day weekend. We've had it before. On Victoria Day weekend, we've had it before. We've even had snow flurries on June the 1st. This year, with La Nina, we're seeing that frost-thaw cycle that's happening. So the weather pattern that has been happening in southern Ontario is the west has been cold for a lot of time, but now getting a little bit of a warm-up. But we're seeing that period where we go from cold to thaw, cold to thaw, cold to thaw. For this summer, long-term forecasts are just too hard to predict. And I will say, when will spring planting season start in May? It could be the middle of May to the end of May. That's all I can answer. But it will be there. Good morning from Guelph, says Matthew. Good morning from Newmarket. Good morning from Guelph again. Morning, Frankie, from Nippy Peterborough. Here we go. We got a good question here too. Morning, Frankie, from Nippy Peterborough. The rabbits are chewing my purple sand cherry. It won't hurt it as long as they don't get near the root ball, right? It can still hurt because even though they're chewing away, they can chew so much on that Prunus cisternum, which is, there's my being fancy, right? Using the odd Latin, which is purple sand cherry. So what I want you to do is I want you to go out today and you're going to get a product called Animal Be Gone. Animal Be Gone has Bitrix. So Bitrix, you're going to spray your sand cherry and any other deciduous, those things that are losing their leaves, plants where the rabbits are going towards. By doing that, it's going to create a taste on them, which Bitrix is totally bad. So by creating that taste, they're not going to eat the sand cherry anymore. Often you'll find that rabbits will eat fruit trees. So there you go. Prunus, purple sand cherry actually its origins is from, there you go. It's a sand cherry. So it's a fruiting type tree. It doesn't put a fruit on. It's an ornamental, but it comes from that family of fruiting trees from the prune. So use that. So you can use that on fruit trees. That's why a lot of the times you see people wrap a collar on a fruit tree, a plastic collar, to prevent that damage from rabbits as well. So let's go. Hi from Innisfil, says Heather. Hey, Heather, how you doing today? We got another one here. Tanya, my good friend Tanya. We are also seeing flight cancellations coming in from farms in Nicaragua, Uganda, which means cuttings delays are coming to growers. So Tanya, that's on here with us today, Tanya's a good friend. She represents Ball, and Ball is the largest horticultural company in the world that many growers and most growers actually source their plant material from. And they're the breeders that actually put a lot of the money in and the R&D, the research and development to breed these new. And there's farms around the world. And those farms often, they're in Mexico. There are actually some in Israel. And you're just seeing here, Nicaragua, Uganda. If we're seeing flight cancellations, what happens there is we then have those cuttings that sit for too long. And sometimes when they arrive to the grower, they're bad. They're just rotten because we need them to come like that. So there you go. Thanks for that, Tanya, as well. Good morning, Frankie from Aurelia. Hello from Wasaga Beach. Let's see what this question is here from Wasaga. Hello from Wasaga Beach. Have 2 puppies. Will I ever have houseplants again? Are there safe ones that I can still have? Thank you. Yeah, there are. There are many plants that are safe for pets, and there's many plants that are toxic for pets. Probably the best listing of plants that you can get, where we can detail them all and look at the bad ones, the good ones, all on one list, is if you were to go to the American American SPCA. So it's the ASPCA. But if you even just type in plants toxic to dogs, and then you put the SPCA in there, you'll find that listing that pops up. And with that, you'll see a great listing. Also, you're going to find after your puppies go after the puppy stage, they generally don't touch your plants. So I'm a real dog-friendly house. I've actually taken care of a couple of my friends' dogs, and I have my dog Bentley, and I have lots of plants around the house. Dogs generally don't give a crap about your plants. When they're the puppy stage, they're just going through and chewing everything, and that's the opportunity to do some training with them as well. I hope that helped. There we go. So we're just going to hide that one. Birds. Here we go. Here's a nice little comment as well. Birds see reflection of the outdoor greenery and will fly into windows. Be sure to keep feeders at distance from big windows, plus add window decals. You can get them online or at various stores such as Birds Unlimited. You can also get them at many garden centers as well. And Suzanne, thank you very much. That's the whole idea here. You can see that's what we do here. What we do here is we actually take care of people. We answer some questions. Get out garden centers early this spring, says Tanya. Good morning from Brampton. We also have good morning from Oshawa. Here we go. From Oshawa, what the question is from Oshawa. Good morning from Oshawa. Where can I buy one of those water troughs you have in your backyard? I get that question a lot. So what I have is horse troughs, stock troughs. They're the troughs that you actually see at many farmers where the cattle or the horses will actually drink water out of. The reason why I love them, they're galvanized so they don't rust and or rot. They actually have a bottom drain, so I pull the drain out, and then I do drill more holes in the bottom for drainage. Large soil capacity, perfect for a raised bed. I got mine at PV Mart. PV Mart used to be TSC, Tractor Supply Centers, but you can get them at any places where you'll see farm supplies sold. Sometimes you can even find them on Kijiji as well. So there we go. That's where I got mine. So PV Mart. Just sounds like a weird name, by the way. Good morning, Frankie from Penetang. Enjoy your Sundays. See you tomorrow on BT. I'll be there tomorrow. Yeah. I'm actually so what's kind of been fun is when I go to the greenhouse and I'm broadcasting from the greenhouse, each and every morning that I go there, my father comes and turns on the lights. My father comes in at about 5:15, turns on the lights. We have a little chat. We catch up. Then my cameraman Gate comes. My dad tells stories to Gate about a lot of the stories about how my family business grew and some of the struggles they went through. Like my father went from Italy to England because my grandfather was prisoner of war to England, lived in England for 7 years, and then came to the Holland Marsh here in Bradford, where I am now, and worked for a farmer, him and his father and his mother and his dad's brother, for 10 cents an hour, and worked, and then finally gained enough money to buy their own little farm. And then from there, things have grown. So those stories are always great. And I'm very, very proud of my father too. Good morning. Here's another question. Good morning from Rockwood. My lantana stander I bought in for the winter. Lantana is beautiful. Actually, if you touch their foliage, they have a little bit of a citrus kind of smell to them. Produce new green leaves. Then the tips go black and drop off. Any thoughts? So that tip drop, so that blackening and the tip drop can be often by a draft. So it can be if it's near a heating vent or even near a doorway, it could be that. The lantana wants to be watered and then dried out in between watering. Big thing is where I could really identify, but that's usually what it's caused. So that's a stress, that blackening of the tips sometimes could just be a draft by the front door on a cold day, could be doing that. Or what also it could be is a heating vent, if a heating vent's near to it. But please send a picture to me, frankie@frankieflowers.com, and we'll take a look and see exactly what the problem is going on there. Good morning from snowy Stratford, Ontario. Anyone else have a poor connection this morning? I hope, let me know about that, guys. Let me know about that as well, because I'm hoping that we don't have a poor connection. Let me just check over here. I have two computers going on here because I want to make sure everybody's good. And I'm just going to do this. Technology, eh? It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun that we can do this and that this is even though, nobody wants to give me a garden show, I can still do a garden show. Oh, there we go. Fantastic. Yeah, we're live. Things are working there on Facebook. So just to know that as well. Hey, Frank, see you tomorrow on BT, says Matthew. Big fan too. Joyce Clark. Rabbits. Let's see what Joyce has to say as well. So here we go. Joyce Clark says, rabbits destroyed my sanctuary. I tried to put chicken wire around it, but they jumped right over it. Sadly, it did die and we had to remove it. Yeah. So once again, that animal will be gone. You may have to do a couple of applications. That will really help out. The chicken wire is a good thing too, but rabbits can actually, even when you're building a vegetable garden, remember that rabbits can dig down 6 to 8 inches. So a lot of the times, if you're trying to prevent rabbits from going into a vegetable garden, you actually have to bury the fence. And then deer can jump up to 7 to 8 feet. So you have to build a taller fence if you're trying to keep those out. Rabbits are one thing, and rabbit populations actually this morning, my son came here, my dad came to pick up my son. This morning, there was rabbit tracks right at my front door. I have rabbit tracks all over my property, but most of the things that I have planted, they don't like. And then in the spring, those troughs that I grow vegetables in, they're too high for the rabbits to get into. So just a little bit about that. Good morning from Port Colborne. Replying to Joyce Clark, snow is, let's see that this one right here is 2. Snow is higher up on smaller branches. That's why they're chewing. Yeah, as the snow goes higher, you'll find that the rabbits start to eat at a higher level. So that's why even with fruit trees, you put that plastic banding around, you should go check those, because if the snow level is higher than the plastic or the plastic wrap that you put around, they can be chewing away. Good point. Great point that's there. Good morning from Brampton. Good morning from Port Perry. Good morning, Frankie. Here's another question that we got here. Good morning, Frankie. I planted 10 trees last spring. I noticed that my pine and spruce types have some rustic color needles. What does this mean? I see it on the ground and the branches. So if you're seeing that rust color, you're starting to get moisture loss. That moisture loss is caused by, it's called winter burn. That winter burn is caused by sunny, cold winter days with winds, and that's what draws the moisture out. That's why sometimes you'll see a burlap screen or burlap around so that was shade. And sometimes those smaller trees do need some of that winter protection. Hopefully they went into winter sitting fairly wet, and they sometimes even some of the white pines will naturally go into that color. But if they went in dry and then they get the winter burn, it can be fatal. So you can try to put some screening around them to shade them out so that they're not getting as much sunshine, or just let them be for this period of time. If you want, send me a picture, frankie@frankieflowers.com, and I'll be able to tell you what things look like. Hello from Port Sydney, beautiful area. Hi from Hillsdale, another beautiful area. Yay, no gypsy moss, says Chris Allen. That was crazy last year. Hello from Ridgeway by the lake. Nice little area there. Good morning. We got to give a shout out to Hamilton today as well. There you go, Kathy Wood. Good morning to you. There's Ridgeway by the lake. There we go. There's another Prince Edward County. Good morning to you as well. Here's another question that we have. This one here. Let's see if that one's going to. Where can I get David Austin roses? I want to order for spring, but no one seems to have them or not answering emails or phones. So Vases is probably the best, one of the better online Canadian companies that are out there. I know that my family business does carry David Austin roses in the spring, and most good garden centers will. David Austin roses are wonderful, disease resistant. They will get some diseases, but a little bit more hardier, easier, classic old style rose. Fantastic plant, like a really great plant overall. But just check with your local garden centers in spring. Like, you don't have to order those guys now. There should be a fairly decent supply, but I would go in early spring. I'd go near the end. Generally for David Austin roses, most garden centers bring in roses the week before Mother's Day. And the reason why they do that is often people want to buy their mama rose. So there's a good time. Good news about reducing gypsy moss. We definitely saw this issue last year in Shelburne. That was from Tara. Tell Dina, there we go. Always to talk about BT. Tell Dina and Sid, thanks for reading my comment on BT on Friday. It made my day. Thanks. Matthew, of course, buddy. Look, I just read your comment there too. Here we go. Please remind everybody in 2022, it is the year of the garden. Please invite them to live the garden life. To live the garden life. Not live, live the garden life. Yes. I'm the one that's always about that. Yes, it is the year of the garden, 2022. And thank you for that, Michelle. Michelle's a really good friend of mine as well. Michelle Gauthier. Michelle was instrumental for the Tulip Festival in Ottawa. And Michelle is somebody who is so super about the world of gardening, getting people out there to garden. So indeed, live the garden life, guys. And remember, gardening is always way better than therapy, because you get tomatoes. There's my line. Good morning. Here's another one. Good morning from Athena and Serena. These guys are always saying hello. Good morning, guys, to you as well. What should we do with our paper white bulbs once the blooms are done? Those guys, they are paper white bulbs. It's really hard to allow them to come back. They're going to go to the big compost pile in the sky. Yeah, just recycle those guys through your green bin, and or if you have your own composter, and that'll go back in. Paper whites are fantastic. They look great. They smell like cat pee. So they're one of those guys out there that really I don't like the smell. So I'm going to do one more question here. There's we go. Good morning from Ancaster. My Bragmesia is in the cold cellar, has a flower blooming with 2 small leaves. Should I bring them upstairs to light? No, that variety of plant will be fine. You're okay. You should water it. Don't allow it to go dry. So make sure that you're continuing watering, even when your plants are in a cold storage or in an area like that. Even though they're blooming and doing things, you can't leave them if they're potted with soil. You got to still make sure that there's some moisture. The key is just put a little bit of moisture into them because we don't want them to rot. If you wanted to bring it upstairs into the light to enjoy the flowers, there's no issue with that whatsoever, but it can also stay there. That's one variety of plant that I would have no worry about whatsoever. So I'm going to do one more. I can never say that word right, by the way. Thanks. That's great so much. Thanks for pinching. I can't wait to try pinching and growing. Yeah, pinching and growing. Don't tell everybody. And then good morning from Saga. And here's one last question. We'll do this one. When using grow light, how many hours a day should it be put on? Depends on what you're growing. Everyone will have a different recommendation. So it's very easy to find. But generally your grow lights, if you're using your grow lights for, let's say, tomatoes and we're trying to grow them, right now during germination, we have enough daylight for them. You would be lighting them if you're really trying to get them ahead of time. You'd be keeping the lights on for about 12 hours, like a 12-hour cycle, 12 hours of light, 12 hours off. So now our daylight hours are around 8. So you'd be doing lighting for an additional 4 hours. So what I would do is light them 2 hours earlier in the morning and 2 hours at night. That will give that whole duration. And then there's nothing like natural light. If you have natural light, if they're in an area where you have no lights in the room, then you do want to put on that 12-hour cycle. So there you go. But it all depends on what you're growing. What you're growing will really determine how much light. So there we have it, guys, on this live on your Sunday. What's today? January the 23rd already. So coming up this week, of course, we'll be live on Breakfast Television. Tomorrow I'll be live right here in my home, in my kitchen. We're going to be doing a little bit of knife skills. Next Sunday, you'll see me here once again on Facebook and as well on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Anytime you have any comments, anything that you'd like to add, we're going to try to improve this each and every week. I'm going to start to bring on some guests. Maybe we'll bring Tanya back on again to talk a little bit about the industry. I think that'd be vital. And she can answer some great questions. Maybe we can even show some new varieties of plants that you can look forward to this year. So Tanya, I'm going to be shouting out to you for that as well. For all those that joined me today, thank you very much. And as I said earlier, gardening is way better than therapy. And the reason why is at the end, you get tomatoes. Now, everybody have a wonderful Sunday. Love you, health and happiness. Keep smiling.